take 3 months to do it, and I didn't want to take time off of work. And I was riding back and forth to work at the time, and I thought, well, gee, if he can go on I got enough vacation to do that. And so when Race Across America came up, I thought, oh, okay, this is an opportunity to do the cross-country race and be able to, check that off the bucket list. And so I did, and I wasn't really prepared for it. I think John can second that. You go into it the first time, you have no idea. Today, I guess, with all the people that have done it since then, you should have some idea when you go into it the first time, but there's still going to be a lot of surprises along the way. But in any case, I finished second, and on the finish line, I thought it would be the last one, but it didn't take more than about 10 minutes. I thought, I could come back and do this better. And so I came back in the next year in '84, and I was still poised to finish second again behind Lon when he started having eye trouble, and so I passed him and won the race, but I didn't feel good about the fact that how I won it, and I still felt there was more out there. I'm a mechanical engineer, and one of the things I saw in '84 convinced me that aerodynamically we could do a lot better. And so I used some friends and my dad and went to work in the shop down below my house, and we built some homemade things that are now called aero bars. And so I used those. I picked up half a mile an hour with that. Then I got into the nutrition aspect of it and decided, liquid food would be a lot better than trying to plow down about 1,000 hot dogs to get enough sodium and nutrition. So I had a liquid food, and then I revised my training program as well. And then I studied my sleep patterns, and so basically I turned the race into what I called athletic engineering, and everything came together. So it was the perfect storm. I slept once every night except for the first one for an hour and a half, which is my sleep cycle. Went through a REM sleep, had my crew wake me up after that occurred, so didn't have any trouble with hallucinations, and except for one time, which we can get into that story if we want to.
We'll get to that. Now, if all of this sounds like the musings of an engineer, it's for good reason. He is an engineer. Yeah. Now, you said you were commuting to work, and we're not talking, 5 miles across town. How far was it each way?
At the time that I was doing the '86 race, I had moved from Dana Point to Fallbrook, and so my original 13-mile each-way commute went to 30 miles each way.
60 miles a week, or a day, just in base miles. That's a pretty good week.
And then on the weekend, I would leave work at, for about 2 months before the race, I started a longer ride on the weekend. And for about the last six weeks, I would leave work after work Friday night and ride out into the desert around the backside of the Salton Sea and come home Sunday night, Saturday night. And then, so it's a 400-mile loop. And when I wanted to quit, I was behind the Salton Sea, and the fastest way to get home was just keep going. So
no turning back.
No turning back. And that helped me, because basically what I had done is I had done the race one day at a time with a week's worth of recovery in between. Then I just had to string it together. So it was the training, and then I put together a crew that was just awesome, and which I was able to do because of winning the race in '84. And then everybody had a lot of people that wanted to be on the crew. I guess they took advantage of that. Everybody wants to be with the winner. Okay, all right. But it all had to come together like that. The crew had to be together, and so that's the way it happened. It was a perfect storm, and so it took a long time for Strasser to come along and move it higher, and he did. Not by a little bit the first time, but then the next year, he just put it out of sight.
Yeah.
I don't see that, it's going to take very rare individual to be able to break what he did.
What is it now?
16.4.
16.4 miles an hour. That's with sleep.
That's with sleep. It's 16.4 miles an hour from the start here to the finish.
Yeah, you new fans at home realize that the clock never stops in the race across America. So the average speed is from beginning to end. The time you stop, the time you're off the bike, that all gets factored in. So to keep 16.4 miles an hour means maximizing every moment of forward motion.
Right. Now, it's important to note that also includes all the climbs, and the race cannot have police escorts and things like that. So you follow all the rules of the road. You have to stop for every traffic light, every stop sign. If you don't stop for a stop sign, you get penalized. And that all adds to the time. So averaging 16.4, when you consider all of that, it blows my mind. I don't know how he did it.
We have officials all the way across the country keeping an eye on the racers, and so for a racer to set a record or to have a good speed, it's not just down to the racer, it's down to that crew, because if the crew makes a mistake, they could also invoke that same penalty. So everything has to go right, like you said, a perfect storm. Now, one of the most perfect moments of RAAM I've ever witnessed was when Christoph Strasser came to the finish podium the year he broke the record. And Fred Bothling, our president, standing over there, got you on the phone and handed the phone to you. It was a touching moment for everybody involved, but especially for you and Mr. Strasser. Tell us about that moment.
Well, I was actually on a bike ride at the time, and
of course,
I didn't, and I knew that he was going to finish that. Now you know when people are going to hit the finish line. So I counted the 3 hours and thought, okay, he's probably finished by now. So I called Fred. It wasn't the other way around.
Oh, okay.
I called him, and I said, "Is Strasser there yet?" And he said, "Yeah, he's standing right next to me." And I said, "Let me talk to him." And he handed him the phone, and so I got to congratulate him. And I couldn't think of a better person to hand that record off to. So that was special for me.
Yeah, he was very touched about that moment. He talks about it in his book, Strasser's Road, and there's a photo of him on the phone with you in the book.
Yeah, it was great. Considering all he went through, it wasn't his first time. It seems like everybody that does this needs at least two or three times to get it all together and have their best race. It just does.
Yeah, he DNF'd his first year. He had edema. I have some pictures of him from Taos with his face all puffed up. But yeah, you learn and you come back. Now, you mentioned hallucinations a while ago. Tell us a little about the incident you were going to touch on.
In '86, I actually had the plan in '84. It just didn't work out. But in '86, what my plan was to start the race and ride through the first night, ride through the second day, and ride through most of the second night until I could go to sleep just before dawn, sleep for an hour and a half, wake up in daylight. And if you get up in the dark and start riding it, your brain just you want to go back to bed. So anyway, that was the approach. And the reason it didn't work in '84 is because I got drenched in a thunderstorm just before, and I had to go to bed before dark. And so I never was able to set this up. But '86 it worked. So the other thing I decided was that I needed to be able to use something that was legal to keep me awake. And so caffeine is legal. And so I avoided it for the last 3 or 4 months before the race. And so I didn't. If that's okay, you don't mind the pause.
That's fine.
So I got through the first night and I didn't eat anything. I was still on adrenaline, I guess. And the second day was okay. And then partway through that second night, I really needed to either sleep or take something because I was starting to feel it. And so I decided to take, I don't drink coffee, so I use low-dose pills. They're 100 milligrams per pill. And that was probably the only mistake I made the whole race. I asked for 2 of them. And man, was I wired. It hit me like, one of the things that caffeine does is it's a diuretic. I peed 3 times in the next 15 minutes. All from the bike, by the way. We figured out a way to do that. So it got me through that night, and then I thought I might have trouble getting to sleep, but it worked out okay. And then every night after that, I needed more of it. Well, I used, 200 milligrams was enough to get me through the night for days 2, 3, 4, 5. About day 5, I was taking it during the day and at night as well, and separated by several hours. And finally, as I was starting to ride the last stretch of the Blue Ridge Parkway, I noticed that I was hitting the brakes going through the turns. Now, I had ridden the Blue Ridge Parkway on a tandem before, and I knew that there wasn't a single turn anywhere on the Blue Ridge Parkway that I couldn't take at 45 miles an hour, even on a tandem. So, and I'm going at 25 miles an hour, and I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to make this turn. And I'm looking at the cyclometer, and I go, oh, this is weird. And then a car passed me, and going probably, the speed limit, which is 45. I thought, there's no way he's going to make that next turn. And he did. But it blew my mind. So I go, something is wrong. So I called I followed man up, and I said, you better give me a couple of no-goes. Things aren't going well here. So they did. And 10 minutes later, I felt nothing, absolutely nothing. So I called them up again. I said, will you give me a couple more?
No.
Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. So they give me 2 more. And 10 minutes later, I called them up the 3rd time. I said, give me a couple more. And my brother says, Joanne says not to give you any more. And I said, she is not riding the bike. Give me 2 more. So he gives me 2 more. I wait 10 minutes, and I still feel absolutely nothing. I call him up again. I said, where's the motorhome? I want to go to sleep. And they said, well, they just stopped for gas and groceries. We don't know where they are. They're out of self. We just used those little CB radios. They had about 2 miles of range. So, I said, okay, take the van, find the first place you can to get off the road. I'm going to stop. I'm going to take like a half-hour nap. I get off the bike, get in the van, and I hear I said, just give me a half hour. And as I started to lay down, I heard them talking. I said, boy, he doesn't look too good. We better get him, a full hour and a half. And I was going to protest and say something, but I fell asleep while I was laying down. I never remember hitting the pillow. And they woke me up an hour and a half later. So, and then I was able to ride through the rest of the night. It was still daylight. I didn't want to stop then, but it's amazing what happens. So that was the closest thing to a hallucination I've had.
Here's something you probably haven't seen in quite a while.
Look at that.
Wow.
Take a look at that. It's about that thick. The route book now within the rule book is, that's about an eighth of the thickness of one of them.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that when this is all we had. We didn't have GPS. Okay? So that's one thing that's a little better now. Even in '86, I was off course for about half an hour or so. So that record would be a little faster if I hadn't got lost. But all these instructions, and that's all you have. And so when we got lost in '86 actually, we missed a turn. And I said, John, why didn't you put some more things in here to tell us when it's coming up? And he says, well, we have the mileage in there where the turn is. I said, yeah, but Volkswagen van, the mileage is off. The thing has a different, if you put put it on the road and you drive a mile like it says, you know, it reads 1.2 or something. It's that far off, so we can't use that. So you have to have other things in there. And of course now we have GPS. You know, everybody's got that. But so that's one thing that's a little bit better. But everything else is just as hard, and the course is a lot harder now than it ever used to be.
That route book belongs to one of our media members who was just a young boy when he stood courtside and had John Marino and Lon Haldeman sign it as they went. John signed it this morning. Pete, I'd like you to sign that. And pass the microphone on to Mr. Shermer there. Michael Shermer. Michael was among that first four. He also did it another 4 times. He did a total of 5, was it? He was also involved as the race director and race management for a number of years. These days, he's the founder of the Skeptic Society. He's at the helm of the magazine associated with them. He's a world-renowned public speaker. He does a lot of lectures around the country. But what people really want to know, Michael, is how's your neck?
Yeah, so a century from now, it's the only thing I'll be remembered for is Shermer neck. I hear about it periodically. There was some guy I was riding with in Santa Barbara, where I live now, who was telling me about his neck, and he told me he had Shermer neck. The guy had no idea who I was. We're just riding along. I'm like, who is the Shermer guy? I don't know. I forget his first name. I said, was it Michael? Yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, so that was kind of fun. Yeah. It appears to be a legitimate medical, so it's like Alzheimer's. At least it's not that. You can recover from this. Yeah.
Now, I'll ask you the same question I asked John. You were there at the very beginning. Did you have any inkling that we'd still be here 41 years later?
Well, a little bit, because just by way of background, the Great American Bike Race name was John Marino's idea. And John had an agent named Jerry Kushnick, who was Jay Leno's agent. He was a big Hollywood agent. And he had kind of brought on board ABC Wide World of Sports and some corporate sponsorship, Bud Light, and kind of made it a big deal. So by the time the race ended and then they aired the show the next year, the spring of '83, and it won several Emmy Awards, we thought, wow, maybe this could be an actual event. And there was a bunch of people like Pete that said, I want to do this. How do we do it? So we orchestrated the first qualifying race out in Hemet. 8 laps of a 100-mile loop that had like 8,000 feet of climbing, or so. It was just phenomenal. And watching you grind through that, I thought, oh boy, I'm glad I'm already qualified. Having already done it once, but so it was just the 4 of us. Marino had ridden across 3 times. Lon broke his record, which was 12 days, 3 hours, when he rode New York to LA and then back to New York as a double transcontinental, and he broke Marino's record on the second half. So that was pretty impressive. And then Howard was gonna break Marino's record, then he had to go for Haldeman's record, so we just figured we might as well just have a race. And I had ridden Seattle to San Diego a couple times, and so that's kind of how that came about. It was sort of the burgeoning ultramarathon community. There was the Ironman triathlon that had just become a pretty big deal, the Iditarod dog sled race in Alaska, and sort of the start of these, go out and almost die type events that people seem to like to do when they're in their 20s and 30s especially. And so this is our 40th year, which makes us, let me see, carry the one, old. I think I was 25 27 the first year I did RAAM in '82. So at any rate, this guy Kushnick tried to orchestrate the filming of the first race, and he was out there on the road telling these guys from ABC Wide World of Sports, who's total professionals, how to film the race. And he had actually told us the night before, fellas, just kind of hold it together until like 100 miles from the finish line, and then you can kind of sprint. And he had no idea what this was about. And so afterwards, the ABC crew came to us. Actually, it was a guy named Bob Iger, who was later the CEO of all of ABC Disney. I mean, he was a big guy. His first job was to buy the Great American Bike Race as a product for ABC. So that's another little small world connection there. And he came to us and said, we'd like to do this again in '83, but you can't have anything to do with this Kushnick guy. He's driving us crazy. He's bad news. So we went to Kushnick and said, oh, what do we do? And he said, nothing, I own the race. Because he incorporated the name Great American Bike Race and told us, and we were idiots because we were in our 20s, you can't have your names on the corporate papers because your competitors would be a conflict of interest. So we're like, okay. So later he said, I own the race. And so we went back to Iger and said, well, what do we do? And he said, fellas, we don't care what you call it. Just change the name. We want to film you guys racing your bikes. We don't care about anything else. All right, so we made up the name Race Across America, RAAM, and that's where that came from. So then we had the qualifier, and then the next year we had our first woman in '83, and then '84 there were more women, and then '89 we added the first teams. There was 4 of us. Pete was on a team, I was on the Gold Rush team. There was 4 teams, and then it became apparent in the '90s when I took over from Marino to run the race that there was more money in the team divisions. There's more people that could do it because regular road racers could do it, as opposed to doing a whole ultra marathon solo, which is so hard. It's probably never going to be in the hundreds. It's probably always going to be in the 20s of the number of people do it. So I think the future of the race, as John said, is probably the teams and multiple different ways for people to enter, which I think is good. And anyway, so that's it. Basically, let me make a comment on the rule book. On the route book is short comparatively now. You should see the rule book. The rule book the first year was just 1 page. No drafting. You can't get in the car and drive. It was pretty basic, right? But I've used this as an analog for how countries or corporate rule books or law books get thicker because people do stuff. So like if you're riding along and there's a crosswind and your support vehicle comes up to give you a water bottle and you do the old water bottle handoff, as you're riding along. Yeah. Or if there's a crosswind, you're getting something of a draft, it became apparent what the riders were doing. So we had to then add a rule. Okay, you can only come up to the rider, once every 15 minutes, 4 times per hour, unless it's over 100 degrees, and then you can come up 8 times per, I don't know what the rule was, but we had to set all these rules. And then there was another one where, I won't mention names, but one of the riders, when we got to Prescott, it was like 110 degrees, and he gets off his bike and just jumps in a hotel pool with the helmet, the shoes, the whole thing. And the hotel owner comes running out. What the hell is going on? He calls the police, and by the time the police get there, the rider's gone, and they pull over the next rider. So we had to have a rule. You can't jump in hotel pools during the race. And then another rider, this was like at 6 in the morning, he pulls into this sort of dirt lot next to a restaurant that looked like it was closed, but it wasn't. So he pulls into this dirt lot and takes care of his business right there without, crew covering him or anything. And so, the diners were not too amused about this. The owner comes, calls the police come, by then the rider's gone, the next rider gets in. This happened, these kind of, so we had to have rule after rule after rule about these kinds of, that's how the rule book got so thick, and that's kind of an analog of what happens, because everybody wants a little advantage, and, they're motivated, they're incentivized to just take every little cut you can, so the organizers have to sort of block that in every way. Anyway, I always thought that was kind of an interesting observation.
Yeah, there's an incident behind every rule. Like one of them is that a crew cannot dance naked roadside.
Oh. Who did that?
Not telling. Now, during your time at the helm of the event, more or less, you said that you brought in the teams. What other improvements or changes did you bring in that you think were instrumental in the longevity of the event?
Well, as many corporate sponsors as we could. After ABC stopped filming it in '86 was the last year they did it. It was hard to get media coverage. Now there's a lot more because of social media. You can get as many eyeballs, if not more, than they ever got with network television. And just kind of making it financially viable. I really have no idea how to turn it into something like the NFL or the Tour de France. It's a different kind of animal. Really, it's more like a alpinist mountain climbing expedition because it's so different. And there's not a spectator aspect where people can pay to come in and see it. So there's that. I just think the consistency of having a viable event that's sanctioned by an official body, that's really the best you could do, and just kind of keep it going that way, because it's such a unique event in that respect. What they've been doing, again, just having a start and finish that's fairly consistent so that the records matter and people can make comparisons, that sort of thing.
You're in a far different world these days. Do you still keep tabs on the race every year?
Oh, yeah, sure, of course I do. Yeah, it's interesting to see how fast they go, and particularly the international flavor. All the people that come here from Europe and other countries, or areas of the world, it's so interesting. Yes, of course, I watch that. I ride my bike, pretty much try to every day, just to keep going. And once you've done RAAM, it's pretty much anything else seems relatively simple in life. I mean, you can always think, marriage or whatever. Well, maybe that's not a good example, but it's kind of it is an endurance. Yeah, okay, never mind. Anyway, there's a lot of pain and suffering. Yes, okay, no. Just kidding.
Once you've done RAAM, everything else seems simple. Can we put that on a T-shirt and we'll credit you?
I really didn't have any idea if I could finish the first time. It was just so many times I just get up and go, well, I guess I'm not going to get through today. And then I go, okay, I'm just going to ride for like an hour or to that corn silo. I'm going to make it to there, and then I'll decide if I'm going to quit. And then you get there and you go, oh, actually, I'm feeling good. I'll just keep going to the next corn silo, and then pretty soon you're out of corn silos, which means you're out of Kansas. And at the time, we were counting the number of Denny's versus Sambo's, and now Sambo's is out of business. So things have changed that way. Yeah. So.
John Deere dealerships now.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on the time in which I'm going to be talking to some of these RAAM soloists that are racing this year. I hope that they listened in and maybe learned a little bit or got a little enlightened about the history of the event and hearing you three gentlemen. So happy that you all made it out here today. Thank you again
for
coming.
Having us. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And Michael, before we go, if you'll sign the back of that 1983 route book. Oh, you did you? Oh, okay.
It looks like mine after I've been doing RAAM or drinking.
Well, both at once is not allowed, of course. It's another one of those rules.
I'll sign it twice. One
all
sober
right.
and one. All right. There we go. Yeah.
And John's already got it, and Pete's already got it. Thanks again, gentlemen. We need to clear you out so we can get this year's RAAM soloists lined up. Maybe you're crew.
All right.
My best story about your RAAM.
No.
Yeah.
Is your hallucination.
Oh yeah. That's on YouTube. If you type the introduction, you'll see the
Well, hang around.
I'm on the middle of Highway 66 in the desert.
Any of the invited RAAM soloists, please come and take a